Today on Locked On Rockies, there's been some excuses before. There's been things to look at and kind of break down and stay positive about. But that one and that series, that's honestly part of unacceptable baseball for the Colorado Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 6th day of September in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. My name's Paul Holden. I am your Rockies fan extraordinaire. 3 seasons now covering this team for your Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can find us on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Just search Locked On Rockies or Colorado Rockies for all your play-by-play action. You can also find us on YouTube, the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can support the show directly by subscribing to the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. The best way to help the show is click that subscribe button and download the podcast, which a lot of you do, and I really, really appreciate it because I'm fired up today, folks. I've been keeping it positive. I've been trying to not delve too much into this, but this finale against the Diamondbacks and some of these stretches and some of these issues and some of the things that the Rockies are doing of late, we can't just keep kicking the rocks of positivity and hopefulness and being encouraged by smaller trends. That game today should have been a Rockies dominant win. That game today is an unacceptable loss on the Rockies' part. And not only is it unacceptable to lose that game, really, and especially in the way you started in the driver's seat and set things up, but it's unacceptable to fold like that. It's unacceptable to hit 4 or 5 batters, to allow an NL West rival to score off of 6, 7, 8, however many unearned runs off of hit batters and walks. That is a problem. That's the issue. And the stuff of being just patient and hoping it works out, that isn't going to solve it. The Colorado Rockies have serious issues when it comes to pitching. The lack of pitching depth, the lack of ability to bring interested pitchers to Colorado, among a long line of inconsistent. I'm so fired up, I'm forgetting my words. Inconsistent bullpen performances. It's a glaring issue. It's a tremendous need that the Rockies need to fix. They might have some needs answered, or at least decent to good players in a lot of their position players. But this pitching staff and the future of the pitching staff and the future of the Rockies is still so much in question and needs a lot of changing. I don't know if it's philosophy of how they are approaching their pitchers. I don't know if it's their philosophy of how they select and go after the pitchers that they get. Granted, the pool of that is probably very limited when it comes to players actually able to lock down and come into and pitch in Colorado. It's something that you really can't sit here and say that any of these things that we're focusing on and being positive about really will matter unless the Rockies solidify and have a plan to pitch. And under this leadership, and under a pitcher-focused manager, the pitching staff has regressed since the playoffs. They have not been able to get good bullpen performance even when they went out and spent money on a super bullpen, and even when they've been able to have at moments a great bullpen. There are massive issues across the board when it comes to pitching with the Colorado Rockies that I'm not sure the Rockies are going to really be able to figure out. There's nothing that I have confidence in terms of the Rockies pitching staff outside of the fact that they have a couple of serviceable starters. At this point, you can really only call some of the Rockies starters serviceable, and they're going to be effective more often than not. I was going to do the episode today on lack of run support for Kyle Freeland, but I have to push it back just due to go into rant mode because a game like today is just unacceptable at the major league level. Unacceptable. You cannot lose the way you did, blow a first inning lead that the Rockies had in the fashion that they did. The Rockies walking 5 people today and hitting even more. I mean, the amount of walks and free passes it's just, you can't do that. There's no progress there. We can look at batting averages and we can look at other things, but there is something that is abundantly clear. This Rockies staff walks batters, and they have walked batters all season long. I mean, that's when the Rockies look just outmatched. That's when the Rockies, in games like today, that's where the Rockies just look so behind the 8 ball. It's where the Rockies look so far behind everyone else. Because you're just handing them the opportunities. You're just handing them free passes and free runs. The Rockies are in the top 10 in walks this year, and they're not the worst team in baseball, but they're close. The Athletics and the White Sox, Angels, Reds, Mets, Pirates, all above the Rockies, but 494 walks, 66 batters hit. And the Rockies still haven't reached a team strikeout rate, haven't struck out 1,000 batters as a team yet. The only team in baseball yet to do so. So, as much as we can sit and be excited about and be energetic and enthused about Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar and the defense of Brenton Doyle, we still didn't hear why Brenton Doyle was removed from the ballgame in this one. Because if you are looking for a silver lining, Brenton Doyle hitting well is a great sign for the Rockies. The speed threat and the extra base threat when he can hit the ball in the gap is a very great sign and is something to really enjoy. Nolan Jones's first swing in this finale was a good one as well. There are things, like I said, I will interject some positivity, but that finale is unacceptable. And that loss has happened so much lately. And yes, it's against good teams. Yes, it's this stretch. Yes, they're young and XYZ. But at other points, this one we cannot just sit and take the easy way out of just leaning on they're young, they're different, blah, blah, blah excuses. That was a pitiful loss today. That was an absolutely big time blown opportunity to sink an NL West rival in the standings during their playoff race on the road to give you that much needed momentum and boost. But the Rockies have yet to put it all together, because that performance today, it just stunk. And I know, and they've been and the pitching staff and the bullpen and Lawrence, they've owned up to it. I know. But I feel like we've been rather fair more often than not here on the pod. But on games like today, that's when it's tough. Other games, watching the Rockies being in close and they've lost, it's whatever. You can feel a little bit better when the Rockies, when the context matters a little bit more. But then when you watch these games that have happened a lot this season, blown opportunities, jump out ahead, have a lead, mess, and it all goes to hell, that's when it gets frustrating. These are the games that are crappy to watch. These are the days where it's not fun to be a Rockies fan. And there have been a lot of days this year where it hasn't been fun to be a Rockies fan. Let's keep talking about the situation. Let's keep talking about the Rockies. The soapbox, I believe, is going to continue here as we're going to continue on the rant of today. Coming up in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about LinkedIn sales. Are you struggling to close deals? Cold outreach is wasting the time of both the buyer and the seller at every stage, especially when sellers are using shallow and outdated data. Your organization can overcome these challenges with technology that translate comprehensive, high-quality buyer data into real-time insights. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. LinkedIn.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for checking us out here, folks. I know it's been a weird season, interesting season. I'm curious. In the comments below, you can let me know how you're feeling as a Rockies fan as we are approaching the inevitable. It's time to embrace it. It's time to embrace 100 losses. Look like the Rockies might narrowly avoid it, as they have sometimes done it, but the writing's on the wall, and it's because of days like today. I don't know what it's going to take for the Rockies to put together the full ball game, to be able to put together the dominance. And yes, there was the Rockies could have been up 7 if the play there in the first doesn't go the way of the D-backs. But it shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't be that's the only time the Rockies offense comes alive. It shouldn't be, the Rockies, here's the offense, but now the pitching can't stop hitting people and can't stop walking people. It's flat out bad baseball. And there has to be a change this offseason of something. Because this ain't working. The philosophy isn't working. And I don't know if really Bud Black, maybe the change is with Bud Black, but they've already offered the extension. We already know that's not going to happen. But just to peddle this out and to just keep going through this madness and to go through a whole other offseason with the same mindset, philosophy, mostly the same roster, XYZ, we're not going to think any different. This team needs something different. This team needs something new. I've been preaching that since I've been on this show. This team is begging for a breath of fresh air, of new life. And yes, there are some young guys that are exciting, and there are trends to be encouraged by. Do you really believe that the Rockies have enough to build into something successful? Will the Rockies do enough? How can the Rockies change the philosophy and the mindset and the aura around the Rockies, around the league? How can you start handling pitching? When are you going to have, at some point, you have to really start looking at and wondering, the focus has to be addressing these pitching issues. And yes, they've tried and they've done some stuff before, but there needs to be more investment in cracking the code and applying a change and a different approach, because the Rockies right now, throughout this season, have looked outmatched at so many levels, at so many points. And it might just be the injuries or whatever, but I don't think having the healthy rotation saves this Rockies team from barely winning high 60 games. There's no life in there's no consistent life in the offense. There's no consistent threat on the pitching staff. There's nothing about the Rockies that screams domination like they did when they made the playoffs. One of the best infields in baseball on top of some of the best offensive producers in baseball, mixed with an all-star outfielder that can lead off games and was insane. The Diamondbacks are a threat because every single one on their team, it seems like, can do damage. The Dodgers are a threat because that's the same. The Padres on paper are the same way. The Giants are similar, but I know the Giants have fizzled of late. I know the Padres have underperformed, but not compared to the Rockies standards. Not when you look at them compared to the Rockies, because the Rockies haven't won a series against the NL West all season long. Unbelievable. It's just absolute unbelievable. The Rockies in the division this year are horrendous. The division owns them, and it hasn't gotten any better. 9-29. No series wins against the division here. They have won 3 of the last over 10 ball games in the division. Their best performance in a division matchup and a division this year was at the beginning of the year. Hopefully I'm reading everything right, but that's what they were saying on the I believe that's what they were saying on the broadcast today. Today is a day where it's just frustrating. Today is a day that doesn't feel good. Doesn't feel exciting or enjoyable. It's just like, I mean, this is the one where morale and energy are low. And I don't want to always be like this. So I try to avoid it. But it's tough. You know? I mean, it's tough when you see the division so far ahead and you just see so many L's for the Rockies against the teams they see the most. I know the new rules change that, but man, it just shows how far away the moment feels for the Rockies. Both the moment that they had of the playoffs and the moment of the next playoffs. I'm just talking playoffs. That's all my standard is for a rebound. It's just playoffs. Because if you make the playoffs, you never know. You got a chance. You can see what happens. You can go from there. But days like today, it's just a reminder of how far away the Rockies truly are. And it's just a bummer. I mean, I don't know. It's just trying to stay, when you try to stay upbeat all the time, it helps. But you can't ignore games like today. And there have been too many examples of days like today this season. These examples need to be pointed to as examples of something's got to give. Something's got to change. Something has to get better for the Rockies. And I don't know. Easy for me to say from my little desk chair here and on my little podcast. I know. But it just makes it hard. As someone who wants to spend his time following this team, days like today make it hard. Hey, something you might need to keep an eye on here as we get into next year. Rockies are going to have to find a new broadcast home. And so we got to talk about that a little bit here coming up on segment number 3. But before we do that, folks, it's here. Yes, that's right. It's right around the corner. It's football time. And FanDuel has you covered for the NFL season with incredible offers from America's #1 sportsbook, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's a steal. If you're looking to get it, I just signed up for my Sunday Ticket with Red Zone. Got to get that Red Zone, of course. And what a snag. What a deal. What a help. $100 off. That's like a third of the price. You can check it out there at FanDuel. And now's the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Folks, this is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We're bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And hey, FanDuel is your title sponsor of today's episode as well. So shout outs again to FanDuel. And you can check us out on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. How are you feeling, Rockies fans? What's going through your mind? Let me know in the comments here of the video below on YouTube. For my audio listeners out there, shout outs to you. Thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Okay, something you need to keep on your radar for next year is the Rockies will be looking for a new broadcast home. AT&T Sports Rocky Mountain will be shutting down on October 5th, leaving the Rockies in limbo. Sounds like the two main options, and that this is from Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post, altitude and Major League Baseball. Personally, for me, I think fingers crossed that Major League Baseball takes it over. I don't think, altitude makes sense, but with the Comcast dispute and with how hard it is to watch two very successful and very good teams, I will take the league doing that and making the Rockies a team that's easy and accessible to watch. In fact, I think that would be the best move for the Rockies, is to make them as accessible to watch as possible, to just bring in some fans. You still see new Rockies fans coming in. People do get interested about the team. People like going to Coors Field. So for me, I think the best option for the Rockies, it sounds like it's not as good of a deal for Monfort, perhaps, I'm not sure, is to let baseball take it, because I think the Rockies would benefit from a team of getting a lot of free exposure from the streaming service and Major League Baseball being able to offer it to more people, and what should be a way to expose the team to more audiences, just because you can't have three of your major sports teams, three of your teams that play the majority of the sports around, not the Broncos once a week, and playing the rest of your major men's sports on then one network, and then them not be accessible by the biggest cable provider in Colorado. That just doesn't seem like a smart call, and it seems like the trade-off of letting Major League Baseball take it over and making it as accessible as possible to their network of viewers seems like the better call. But maybe it's a smaller share, maybe it's a smaller size. So something you'll need to keep your eye on there is the way you watch Rockies baseball will be different next year. So if you're looking to follow the team, especially because I'm sure blackout restrictions and things might still apply, it might get weird. I don't know what happens to blackout restrictions if Major League Baseball has the rights. I don't know if there's still local stuff. So make sure you, as you're approaching, because this will happen, and this news will be something to follow for the off season. And Saunders mentioned that things are currently up in the air with the broadcast team. Sounds like he mentioned they could very much as well be coming back, but with changes coming with something like this happening, who knows? Change does follow. So might be changes to the broadcast team that we've been accustomed to for a long time. If you've been watching for Rockies baseball for a bit. So certainly something you got to keep your eye out for, and don't ignore if you're a Rockies fan, because if you forget, then the season's going to roll around next year, and then you're not going to know what's going on. And you're like, where are my Rockies? And then you're going to have to go through the convoluted process of possibly setting up a streaming service or setting up a cable package. And you're not going to want to do that on the day that you want to watch Rockies baseball. So something to keep in mind. And thanks for letting me rant today. I needed that. I needed to just bring up some of my frustrations watching the team of late. Needed that sip of water. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day and for finding us on your favorite streaming service. Make sure that you go check out Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs for your second listen of the day. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flippity flip.